It's 7 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting to order. We have 18 participants with us tonight. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting. That's a large number for us. Thank you for coming. First order of business is pledge to the flag. And I will mute the panelists so that there's not a whole lot of feedback. And then ask everyone to please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now you're going to need to unmute yourselves if you want to talk. This is an intentionally short agenda tonight. I hope to be finished relatively quickly. The board does have a meeting with our lawyers at 7:30 about the upcoming contract negotiations. So we'll be going into executive session at 7:30, and I hope to have the meeting wrapped up by then, obviously, except for coming back to adjourn. I just got a text from Noah here. He's having trouble getting on. He said he'd join us as soon as he could. The next order of business is the approval of minutes from our February 22nd meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, could I have a motion that they be approved as submitted?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
No, that was trustee Cornrows.
Oh, you two really shouldn't have your pictures right next to each other.
Not on my screen. She's in the opposite corner as I am.
Well, Christine's muted. I'll second.
Okay. Motion by trustee Cormos, second by trustee Raymond. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Next item is mayor announcements. I just have a couple of quick things for the board. First, our Section 8 housing audit has been completed and copies are in your mailboxes for your review. I'm pleased to announce that we have another Eagle Scout project in the planning stages in the village. Sean Hughes of Troop 11 in Saratoga Springs is planning to replace the kiosk at Kelly Park with a new sign and bulletin board. And that certainly is something that needs to be done, and we appreciate Sean's efforts. Third, Chief Bush has implemented a new use of force policy in the police department that is consistent with state and national guidelines. So we're glad to see that accomplished. Fourth, we expect the final report from our police review committee later this week. It should be on our website by March 15th, and I'll be scheduling a public hearing for our next meeting on March 22nd. The board has to adopt that report or amend it and adopt the amended report and submit that to the state by April 1st. So we're right on target. If anybody's not aware of it, in the big windstorm we had a few days back, the DPW facility lost a 10 by 40 foot section of roofing. It didn't actually come off the building, but it came loose and was flapping in the wind. The staff replaced it in position and tacked it into place. It will probably need additional work for a permanent fix, but we're waiting for the insurance adjusters who are supposed to be on site on Thursday. And finally, with spring approaching, we need to decide whether we once again want to try to assist local businesses like we did last summer. I will put that on our next agenda as a discussion item. And under the assumption that we might again close Front Street, the Committee on the Arts has volunteered to undertake plans for making our street barriers artistic and more attractive, which I know was an issue last summer. So that group has volunteered to take that on as a project, and I appreciate that. So that's it for announcements. There is no old business tonight, so we'll move on to new business. Could I have a motion that the budget transfers be approved?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by
ahead.
trustee Raymond. Was there a
Second.
second? Second by trustee Shaw. Thank you. An unusually large number of budget transfers tonight, simply reflecting that we're nearing the end of the fiscal year. More budget lines are being fully expended, and there's more housekeeping to do as we prepare to close the budget. Any other discussion on the budget transfers? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Budget transfers are approved. Next item is the consent agenda. Does any trustee wish any item removed from that consent agenda before we consider it? Hearing none. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Fitzpatrick, who is no longer next to trustee Cormos on my screen.
I'm over.
She's next to, they're still next to each other on my screen.
No,
Thank
Isn't that
you.
fair? All right.
Second by trustee Cormos. Thank you.
that's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, they move around. I don't know why. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Consent agenda is approved. And that brings us to trustee liaison reports. Does any trustee have a report for us tonight?
Just a brief one, that Julia has the contract for the tree grant, and shortly it'll be signed, and then we can actually start working on that grant. And the first task is writing an RFP for a consultant to come in and do the inventory and management plan. And we've been working.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, well, we've been working on the technical assistance grant and gathering lots of information. We should be done with that in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Any other trustee reports tonight? All right, that brings us to other business. I'm not aware of any other business that needs to come before the board tonight. So we'll move on then to public comment. I would like to make a couple of requests tonight for public comment. The first is, at our last meeting, there was a tendency to get into electioneering and politicking, and this really isn't an appropriate venue for that, a venue for that. So I would ask that we have no election speeches, no posturing for or against any candidate, that we keep public comment free from the election tonight. And secondly, I ordinarily don't time public comments because I believe that we ought to hear people out when they have something to say. But tonight I'm going to ask that you please keep your comments under 2 minutes for each person. So with that said, if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. And it takes me a minute because I can't see everybody all at once. So I have to scroll through the list to see if there are any hands. I see a hand and I will recognize Paul Farnan. Please give us your address for the minutes before you speak. And Paul, you're on.
Paul Farnan, 27 McLean Street, Ballston Spa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you give us an update on the firm you're choosing, or have you chosen one for the comprehensive plan?
No, we're still working with the Capital District Regional Planning Commission to identify the scope of work that will be in the request for proposals. So then the request for proposals comes next, and then we'll get proposals in from firms who wish to be considered.
Do you have a timeline of when that may be completed?
If I may comment, what the CDTC and the CDRPC are working on is actually creating the existing conditions part of the comprehensive plan, working with us. And so that's the part I was just talking about, which should be done in a couple of weeks. And then their next scope of assistance to us is to help us develop that RFP. That would take probably another month, and then the RFP, then their assistance to us will end, and we'll get a consultant to work on the rest of it. But their work will save us considerable dollars on getting all that baseline data together and creating maps and charts and such.
Good enough.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Mr. Farnan. And I don't see any other hands tonight. This may be a record meeting. Thank you to everyone for cooperating. I see one more hand. I'll recognize Bob Bush Jr. Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Hi, Robert Bush Jr., 71 Church Ave. I was at Dr. Frugal's office, who's on 48 or 348 Milton Ave. It's actually he's on the corner of that and North High Street. He wanted me to mention at the board meeting that the parking lot behind his practice had a one-way sign on it on the telephone pole, which was removed. He would like to know if he can get that put back for the safety of his patients, because they have a tendency of taking a left-hand turn on a one-way street. And I told him I would bring it up to the.
Okay, thanks. Tell me again where this place is that you're talking about.
It's on the corner of Milton Ave and North High Street. The
Milton.
actual address is 348.
348
That's
Milton.
only one-way street in the village, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, and I will ask DPW to look into it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. I see another hand, Mandy Ryder. Mrs. Ryder, you're allowed to talk. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll make this very, very brief, but once again.
Sandy, your address, please.
I'm sorry, 9 Heritage Place, Ballston
Thank
Spa,
you.
New York. All right.
Thank you.
And again, I mentioned this last time, I wish other people that were asking me these questions would also, zoom in on the meetings. But I told them that I would get back to you after I zoomed in tonight. But they were asking me about the possibility of restaurants being opened on the sidewalks in downtown as they were last year, thanks to you, Larry. And I think you just answered that. The possibility is that outdoor eating will be available downtown.
Yes, I have had several discussions with the restaurant owners who all think it was great last year and would love for us to do it again. And my general sense is that the board also thought it was a successful experiment last year and would favor moving forward. The one thing that I'm not sure about is whether we still have the emergency authorization to do that as we did last year. So that was some kind of special deal where we were allowed to give access to public property for private restaurants and serve alcohol on public property. As far as I know, that's still in effect, but that's the one thing that could be an obstacle. But I know that the board intends to investigate, and I think it's a good bet that we will move forward again this year with a similar program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I will tell, if it's okay with you, that the friends that have contacted me, that those of us that have had the second vaccine and after waiting 2 weeks, we can feel comfortable going inside. But a lot of what I'm hearing from my friends here is that they loved the outside dining. And so thanks to you, Larry. They were really hoping that this could be a pandemic or not, but this could be a, something that in the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryder. I think that's it. Let me just scroll through one more time. All right, I don't see any other hands up. If I'm missing anybody, raise it quickly because I'm gonna scroll through one more time. And I still don't see any hands up. So I will end public comment. And thank you very much to the 3 people that made comments. This concludes the business portion of our meeting. We do need to go into executive session, as I mentioned earlier, to discuss contract negotiations. And as we did the last time we went into executive meeting, I have to end this meeting because we can only have one meeting going at the same time. So I have to end this meeting in order to start the executive session meeting. And then after the executive session, I have to end that one and restart this one because we have to adjourn from this public meeting. So we will be coming back at some point to adjourn. And if you would like to join us to watch the adjournment, I don't anticipate any other business, but you're certainly welcome to come back and watch us adjourn. What will happen is that when I end this meeting, you'll be disconnected. And then when I restart this meeting after the exec, you would have to sign back in. If you try to sign back in before I restart the meeting, it'll let you in, but it'll tell you that the meeting hasn't started yet. And then you'll automatically be admitted as soon as I start the meeting. So if anybody wants to do that, that's the way it'll work. And I estimate that the executive session will probably take somewhere in the order of magnitude of an hour. So I'm estimating that we'll come back and adjourn probably around 8:30. I could be off one way or the other. So if you're interested in joining us, you might want to sign back on at 8 o'clock or something. But I don't think you're going to miss anything but the adjournment. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate your interest and your participation. And I'd ask for a motion that the board adjourn into executive session to discuss contract negotiations.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shaw. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. This meeting is temporarily adjourned to executive session. And I'm going to end it so that we can start that other meeting. Thank you again.